Right, welcome, chaps. How's it going?
Very good, my man. Very good. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Jack, I'm sick of seeing you. I said it last time. You know, I've known him. How long have we known each other now? About 2 months?
About that, yeah.
2 months. He only lives about 3 doors down from me, and every time I roll over in the morning, he's next to me. It feels that way.
Sneaky little Irishman,
Sneaks up everywhere. And then, obviously, Marty, my good friend, we've known each other a good few years, about 6, 7 years now.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And obviously, we've had a few podcasts together in the past. Obviously, we've had one.
Yep.
So thank you for coming along. I thought what we'd do is, obviously, we've done a lot of in-depth discussions with, you know, one-on-one and gone into personal stories. But I think there's a lot of shit going on at the moment, and a lot of kind of topics that are getting raised. You know, masculinity, name gets thrown out, toxic masculinity, all this type of stuff. And I'm a big believer in not a lot of people really understand the meaning behind the words. People start throwing fucking words out. It's the buzzword, and they throw it out left, right, and centre, no matter what it is. And I think if we're going to throw a word out at somebody, I think we should understand what it means, because awareness is the key to growth. And a lot of people don't even understand what the fucking word is when they're throwing it. It's just kind of saying, this person isn't making me feel happy, you're this. So I think there's a couple of things I want to unfold today, and you know, using you guys, because there's genuinely some of these words I don't even fucking really understand. You know what I mean? But they get banded about. So that's kind of a bit of a flavour for today. But you two have had a lot going on in your worlds recently as well. So, you know, I think it's, you know, within the good men helping good men framework, I always say within men, the love and relationships pillar's fucking, it's one of the biggest kind of, could be the biggest kind of cause of pain for men. It can be trapped as the prisoner of your own mind. I've said it many times. But also, it can be the biggest kind of, you know, beautiful thing that can happen in your world. If you've got a great partner, it just adds such a layer to your life. And, you know, I've had my missus just move in recently with me, and we'll talk about some of the ups and downs of the move and the comical fucking move that we had. But I genuinely feel like my life has clicked up. It just feels, the house, I know it's very cheesy to say, house feels like a home, but something changed. You know, my missus is there. You know, we merged all our stuff, and it looks fucking great. It feels great. She's there. I'm not like putting a backpack on thing and I've got to fucking traipse to yours, bring me laptop and do all that type of stuff. I feel more settled, and it feels fucking great, and I feel more present. So I think relationships can be really, you know, a beautiful addition to your world, but they can also be one of the biggest causes of pain. So I'm not saying any of us here in any you know, we're not in the latter, hopefully. But Marty, you recently you got engaged back in, was it September?
September, October.
October. Been with Janini how many years now?
It's been 3 years almost.
3 years, okay.
Almost 3 years, yeah.
3 years, and you moved.
Flown by.
I know, because I remember when you guys met.
Time flies when you're having fun, so you know she's going to be listening, right?
And how's it been? So you've been engaged, you moved in. How is everything going with you and Janini?
Oh, it's been awesome, man. Just what you were saying then. She moved in August last year, so it's not far off a year now we've been together. And just what you said then. She moved in, and everything's leveled up. You know what it's like? They're more, I don't know, intricate than me anyway when it comes to the detail of the decor and the layout of the room and everything else. Feels more homely with her there, number one. But number two, she's just leveled the whole place up, so that's been great. It's adapting, right? And from what you were saying then, is we adapt to everything, right? So, you know, you adapt to the inconvenience of when you're not living together, and you're like, you kind of normalize it, don't you? You're like, hey, this is great. But when you get to that next level, and you take your relationship to the next level, right? Because you're spending more time together, you're waking up together and all that kind of stuff. But it's been awesome, man. It's been incredible. And I think stuff we don't talk about as well is a lot of the times we have worries about these things, like you say, because pain, you know, we've had pain in the past from previous relationships, you know, and it's not the first time we've lived with a woman, right? And then you look back and you go, okay, what if this, that, and the other? But you've got to commit to these things, because otherwise, I think I heard someone say about, for example, I'm getting married in November, right? So in Brazil, and a lot of the times we worry about things, but really there's a bigger risk not taking action, right? For example, getting married. Not getting married, you know, is risky, right? Getting married is risky, but not getting married is riskier, right? In some cases. Now, it doesn't mean you should just marry anyone, but
get a lasso someone on the street. Quick, Marty says, get married.
Exactly, but I think just what is what I've learned myself. It's having that framework of fully committing, going all in. And since I've done that, and we've both done that, everything's gone to the next level. So really excited, man, for the marriage in November. And yeah, living together has been great, man.
Oh, congratulations, my friend. And one of the things there, but it goes without saying that when you kind of move in, there's challenges. You know, there's challenges within every relationship. And I'm just, you know, keen to interest, you know, I know Janine, she's a beautiful person, you're a great person, two great human beings, but you're different, you're bespoke, you kind of have your own nuances, and when you try and merge those two worlds, I'm sure there's been challenges that you've had to overcome during those periods of time as well, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's normal as well for us to kind of, we're always questioning things, whether it's your business, whether it's your relationship. It's good to question things at times as well. You go all in, but I think a lot of the times we get worried when we have self-doubts about certain things, but it's actually totally normal. Everyone has self-doubt. Everyone, thinks over things too much, overthinking. I heard you talk about that before. So yeah, man, it's just been incredible. But the challenge is cultural as well. Right? Obviously, with her being from Brazil, I'm from the UK, so merging two different cultures together. My family dynamic is completely different to hers. So there's a lot of things which are very different in terms of our upbringing and our background and stuff. But then at the same time, we share a lot of other things in common. And again, it's adapting, right? So it's beautiful to be part of a family as well. I think that's something you always talk about with good men, right, is the social connections. And that's the incredible thing about her family dynamic and Brazilians in general, right? They value those things a lot more. And being part of her family, I think I mentioned to you when I went out there to Brazil, it was incredible to feel part of something, because my mum's amazing and stuff, but my family is a little bit dysfunctional, right? It's just the way it is, but like it was normal for me and it's fine. But being part of that feels incredible to have that. And it's like having another family, on top of my current family. So that's amazing, man. So I feel like that community piece, and we'll touch on that today, they do that naturally. But I feel like we really need to make all the stuff we talk about, we really need to make the relationships, the loving relationships a priority, because we can easily neglect them. And I heard something recently, one stat is crazy. On average now, we spend, I think, 4% of our time with our families. Obviously for us, we live the other side of the world to our families, but just in general, 4% of our time with our families. It used to be in the 1950s, I think it was 38%. And it just interactions in general, right? It's one of those things now where I feel like it's almost a dying thing, and that's the number one. When we talk about true health, the connections you have with people are the most important thing.
Oh, human connection.
End.
Human, 100%. Well said. Well said. Okay, well, great to hear that. And as I say, it's always good to not say everything's fucking always rosy. We have challenges. It's only natural. 100%. So thanks for sharing that, Marty. Yeah, so Jack, my friend, you've currently got Steve's family over. You had the mum and dad over, and you've got more family turning up and stuff. And I recently just bumped into your missus on the road, and I can see she's a beautiful human being, great energy, beautiful feminine woman. And I think I wouldn't expect anything else coming from yourself, my friend. But how's that been? Has there been any challenges? Has it all been kind of plain sailing? And how's things?
So far, so good. Her parents actually left for New Zealand yesterday, so they're away for the next week or 10 days, and then they come back and then they go away again. But then there's a period of about a week or 10 days where, there's her two sisters, her niece, and potentially one of the partners and her parents, all under one apartment block. But it'll be interesting, but it should be, it's really nice for Sive because I guess it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so...
No, I know what it's like when your family come over for you. It's better when they come over to Australia. It's sunny, there's shitloads going on, rather than going back to the pool. For me, for example, it's pissing down and you can only go into pubs or whatever. Over here, it's just like, I find I feel like I'm on holiday again because I just relive everything and take them on this journey. And I'm on this fucking incredible journey. I think, why don't I go here? It's after you were at Palm Beach the other day. How beautiful is Palm Beach? It's the best. Okay, so it kind of brought me to, because I just touched on my missus moved in. I think it was Wednesday. We came back from Luton on Tuesday. She moved in on Wednesday. It's hectic, right? And she moved in, and we've got a beautiful relationship. Very rarely do we argue. We have disagreements, and we'll communicate well. Obviously, we're both on a growth journey. We kind of catch ourselves when we trigger, and we try and kind of, what is this? Try and helicopter view out what's going on and have that conversation. Sometimes give ourselves a little bit of space to talk through. But in a move, they say, move's one of the most kind of stressful things you can do, right? And we were kind of merging her world into mine. She was going to downsize a bit. I was going to downsize a bit. I started doing shit at 7 a.m. in the morning. and moving and shaking, and it meant to turn up at 11, then it's 12, then it's 1, then it's 2, and then the van turns up, and I thought there's a small van, it's a fucking full van, and the boxes are rolling out. Oh fuck, here we go, and it became hectic. And then have you ever seen the Friends where pivot, where you got the stairs? We managed to get his daughter's queen bed.
That's a lot of stairs as well.
Stuck on the stairs. It wouldn't go up the lift. It wouldn't drill. It was like glue and nails. So I ended up having to leave it after an hour of going pivot on the stairs. I had to leave it, air task a carpenter to come the next morning to unscrew, to cut through it and then drill it.
No way.
Pull it over the balconies and then drill it in, and it was just. It was one of those things. It's so funny what happened that day. I was on it from 7 o'clock till 11 o'clock at night, and anybody who moves home goes, "Yes, we get it." But there was some real, painful, challenging moments. And then I come upstairs, and and my missus was being triggered by the whole experience. She's moving into my space. Oh, it's not big enough and all this. And I'm going, "It is. Look at the space everywhere." And I felt. I very rarely get triggered to the point of losing it. And there was one point in there where it really got me. And I almost, raised my tone. And I was like, hang on a minute, and that came through. And I don't often hear that. So I caught it. And I was like, and I took myself outside on the balcony, and I'm sitting there, and I give myself 5 minutes, and I was just breathing. I tried to meditate. I've got the fucking removalist walking past me going, what's this weirdo doing? I'm like fucking Yoda. Goose frabber. I was trying to chill out. But it worked. It worked, and I calmed down, and I came back to my missus, and I actually said to her, I said, look, I changed my tone, I changed my stance. I said, look, I love you, and this is just stuff. It's happening. In 2 days' time, we'll be over it. There's clearly enough stuff. I understand, what you're coming through and what I'm doing. These are just our potential gifts of growth. We're being triggered by something. It won't be us. It'll be from past. Maybe a past partner's behaved to us a certain way that triggers applies the pressure. I know from my family dynamics, when the pressure's on, people get heightened emotion. That's just what happened. So I know that's inbred in me, and I've kind of worked on that a lot to calm that down. So I just thought it's important for us as men to not shy away from acknowledging that none of us are perfect. We all get triggered, and no matter where you are on the growth journey, that trigger, unless you're bloody Buddha, you're going to have some elements of triggers and still elements of traumas that are floating in within us. But the awareness is key in trying to capture it early. None of us are perfect. We're perfectly imperfect. And as I said, I think these challenges present gifts of growth. And those emotions, when they come up, I was making a note of something today, and I was like, these emotions are something that it comes up, and what happens when the emotion comes up, the ego takes control. Okay, so the ego comes in. The ego fucking loves a fight, right? I've said it before. The ego comes in to play, and it's like, what's going on? And we were talking, me and Jack were talking earlier this week. There's been a lot of stuff going on. You look at the film that's been out recently, or the Netflix thing, Adolescence. There's been masculinity has been pummeled over the last few years, and we're just using one term, toxic masculinity and stuff like that. And it's been overused to the point now it's kind of lost its meaning, and different words are coming through.
Misogyny is another one.
Yeah, there's all of this stuff that's coming through. But as I said to you at the beginning of the podcast, I believe all of these things are true, and a lot of stuff happens. Men do emotional manipulation and a lot of shit. Women do a lot of emotional manipulating shit. I'm sure deep down nobody wants to do it. As I said before, part of our programming, you know what I mean? So, but awareness is key, and we need to understand what these fucking words mean that's getting thrown out and about. So there's a couple of things I want to touch on today, because when you're talking about, when the ego comes out, and you can be in a situation in a heightened emotion with your partner from a love and relationship perspective, and then I'm like, well, what's narcissism? Because people go, oh, you're a narcissist, and you can have male narcissist, female narcissist. And I was speaking to, I didn't really understand the dictionary definition of it. And it just so happens we've got a Greek philosopher here, because he happened to mention to me
Jack Costello.
Jack Costello, Greek philosopher. I think he must have a few books.
Oh no, he hasn't got the glass on right now. He's out of the philosopher mode today.
We're going to be like, oh, that's him. Sad, he gets his book signed now. No, but he mentioned there's actually a Greek philosophical term behind that. So I wouldn't mind. I did my own little research to try to understand it, because I think we need to simplify stuff rather than overcomplicate. Let's simplify stuff so people understand what the fuck is this. I can identify it if I'm doing it, because I'm sure I've done it, and other people, if they do it to you, what is this? Why are they doing it? So, Jack, over to you. What the fuck's narcissism?
So, in Greek mythology, it's the story of Narcissus. Narcissus, basically, he's sentenced to pretty much fall in love with himself. And that's actually an interesting point as well, because just to be clear, narcissists don't love themselves. So there's a misperception there on people who are narcissistic that they love themselves. They actually don't love themselves. They can't love themselves, so therefore they create an illusion that they get wrapped up in. But yeah, Narcissus was the story of this very attractive man in Greek mythology who looked at his own reflection and was mesmerized by it to the point that he got stuck and couldn't take his eyes off his own reflection in the water. And he stayed there and died, I think. There's a few different versions of how it ends, but then you have from the place where he died, you have the Narcissus flower as well. So that's my loose...
No, well, I'm glad you explained that, because I'm like, I didn't know what narcissism was, and then you brought this Greek philosophy stuff in. I said, okay, that's interesting. So I had a look at it today and just, thinking, well, I just want to simplify stuff because, it can go real deep. And, there was three things that I got to simplify narcissism. It's like, as you said, first thing that come through is they see themselves as superior. So they see themselves as superior to the other person. I know best, that type of mentality. They usually have fragile self-esteem. Okay? They usually have fragile self-esteem. So again, if we're looking at it, they see themselves as superior, but they actually behind usually have a fragile self-esteem. And the ego will kind of act as like armor for them with that low self-esteem. It triggers and it comes in to protect. So yeah, you know what I mean? And they'll fucking do anything. And there's a real need for control and validation.
Yes.
So those three things for me, if I'm like, okay, so what is a narcissist? Okay, they see themselves as superior. So someone who's a know-it-all. I fucking no. I know best. Not going to listen, right? Mm-hmm. The next one would be they have a fragile, a fragile self-esteem. The ego is going to protect. So the minute you try and say, hey, you call something out, they're going to fucking challenge you. They're going to trigger. They're going to get angry. Okay, 1, 2. And then they need to control and validation. Yep. And that constant control and validation. And this is why I think, and I use the word gaslighting, they almost kind of go hand in hand. But I've heard these words and I don't understand them. And I think as men, we need to understand them. Again, not just for ourselves, but to understand if we're doing it, or if somebody else is doing it. So this is the reason why I'm touching on it today. Not to say that fucking men are fucking narcissists or gaslighting, because it's not a fucking gender-specific thing. It's just fucking stuff that we need to understand to help people, right? So from a gaslighting perspective, how many times have you heard you're a gaslighter? Not to you, yourself. You, Marty, you gaslighting bastard. Not in that way, but it's everywhere, right? You hear it everywhere, but I mean, what actually does gaslighting?
I've still been trying to figure out later. I hear it getting thrown around, but it is when they basically just like someone getting cancelled, for example, right? No. Or someone getting, is it when someone gets like quietened down, essentially?
Well, exactly. Well, this is the point in question. So, you've read, how many books have you read in the last year?
Yeah, a lot, man. I read about 35 a year.
35 a year.
Like
you digest a lot of books. You're very, well read, well versed, expert in your field. Yourself as well. Leadership coach. Men's coach. And we didn't really, when we spoke, we didn't say that we had this clear definition even of what gaslighting was. So again, it's really important. So I broke it down into just what's the easiest form of this. So what I got, gaslighting, it's a form of psychological manipulation where someone causes someone to doubt their own reality, memory, or perception. Mm-hmm. The goal is to gain power over that person. So what you're doing is you're basically questioning their reality. Do you know what I mean? So if someone says, oh, I did that. No, that never happened.
Yep.
That never happened, Jack. Bullshit. That never. And you're like, fuck, that fucking happened. Now, if you're in a relationship, whether it be a friendship, and again, it's not gender specific. A man to a woman to a man. It doesn't fucking matter. But we're men, so we're going to hold ourselves accountable in this conversation about men and us. But what I'm saying is, we're sitting here, and this is the first time I've gone into what this fucking means. And there's a lot of this that gets banged about that isn't even fucking right. It's just that somebody might be pissing somebody off, and you go, oh, you're a gaslighter, but you don't even know what it means. So once we understand what it means, that's why I think if we want to continue to grow, humanity, society. We need to understand these fucking things. Because if I understand what that is, it's kind of like, fuck, I would have done that when I was younger. But what happens is, because if you're emotionally intelligent, right, and you're young and you haven't been mentored or coached, like virtually no one has around these things. No one said, you don't get taught this in fucking school. Parents haven't really taught anybody this. You're just floating around. You're young, and what do you get? What do you get from your mates? You know, I remember a friend of mine. I won't mention any names. Back in Liverpool. He was the master of this, but he was a master of this even with his mates. He would say something to make you fucking and he would have you on a string. He would, you know, he was very, very clever, and a lot of them I think are very clever, emotionally intelligent, and he would have you on a string. And it's like, and he used to say, say you've been in a relationship with a woman and you've done something wrong. Say you're younger and you've cheated or you've fucked up or you've done something. He'd just go, turn the tables, admit nothing, turn the tables. And like he would celebrate it. And then, but this is what you're brought up on. So you're 15, 16, and turn the tables, right, let's go. And now I've done it as a kid. And the only way you realise is as you go up and with experience, you mature. You become a man. You start learning through your own experience what's right and wrong. If you have a strong moral compass, it comes through by itself. If you don't, you need help. You need help, because if you've been programmed in a certain way and your moral compass is fucking clouded with all the shit that's come through, how the fuck are you going to know? So we need to kind of understand this, because the more people understand what this is, think, shit, I'm gaslighting someone. Because what I'm talking about there is so toxic and sends people so loopy that what they don't understand, something that you think might be minuscule, where you kind of say, oh, that never happened, you're really, really adding traumatic experience to whoever that person is, a friend, a man or woman, whatever. But you're adding such toxicity to that person and adding a real problem for the rest of their days. The longer you do that to somebody. Now, if somebody sits there and understands that and goes, I didn't realise I was doing that. I bet you there's a large percentage of people who immediately, when they understood what they're doing, because they don't know, because they're not being highlighted to them, they would change. And, you know, when I looked at this, I thought, fuck, I've done these things when I was younger. Does that make sense?
100%, man. And the gaslighting thing, right? Going back, there's all these terms that get thrown around now, like you just said then about toxic man. It's a different world now, right? So everything's getting programmed, like you said, into our brain, especially if you look at like kids, for example, they spend their whole day on social media. So their subconscious mind, imagine it was around, well, he's a dinosaur, right? I don't even think they had emails around when he was younger.
Still on pen and paper now.
But we didn't have the social, not to go off on a tangent too much, but we didn't have social media. Even when I was a kid, didn't have social media. Facebook came around when I was like, even Facebook, I was like 19, 20. Instagram, I was 27. But in your teenage years, when you're exposed to that environment online, and then the algorithm is expertise, right? The algorithm is generated to get people hooked into certain videos, take them down rabbit holes, and then their whole mind gets polluted with these words, right? Like you say, gaslighting, whether it's misogyny, to all these different words and terms. Then the algorithm is gonna plug you into more. So think about it. Someone spending their whole day on social media, then they're going to get bombarded with all these words, right? And all this, because it is a form of manipulation, right? Online as well. There's loads of benefits, don't get me wrong, technology, but there's a real dark side to it as well, right? So
side.
I think when you're saying all these words, I'm like, wow, like you say, I've read a lot of books, but it's only the online world that's really brought me onto these words, right? Because again, you start listening to certain podcasts or whatever, even for me on YouTube, and then bang, it'll bring up, and I'll hear those words time and time again then, right? And we don't understand what they are. And then before you know it, there's like two camps, right?
Yeah, it's like 100%.
You know?
100%. Then it becomes defend and attack, and society doesn't win that way. And then that word itself, if you kind of want to open up that topic to really understand it, it can almost, if you say it in the wrong way, you're going to get clipped as if, oh, you're the bad person. No, I need to understand what the fuck this is. You know, and then we can help other people. We can, am I doing this? Is someone doing that to me? You know, can I help, might be children. Can I help my children really understand this? Because I don't really understand it. Yeah, and it brings me to, thinking now we understand what these things are. Have you guys had any, Jack, have you had any experiences like this in your life, any in your world where things like this you've identified?
Yeah. There's, before kind of touching on my own experience, there's a one individual quite recent who's come into mind. But I I think it is important to kind of clarify that while we are trying to educate on the terms, that for like narcissism is a disorder, a personality disorder, and one of the things on top of everything that you said, empathy is something that they essentially can't do because they're so consumed with creating the illusion, like you said, control. So rejection is another thing. They cannot bear rejection. So when they experience rejection, that sense of control is then threatened, and that's when the gaslighting happens, you know, because they're being exposed for their inadequacies. And because they don't do any of the inner work or look inwards, because they can't do that, because that's the whole illusion in the first place, that's where the gaslighting comes from. So the angle I'm coming at with all this is that, like, it's I would say the essence of this, or why this is so important, is that if you're around that, or you're in a relationship with somebody who's narcissistic, to see those qualities, or sorry, qualities is not the term, those traits, it's really important to be able to identify those traits, and then to be able to actually realize who this person is. So the story I had was I was working with a guy, and he was the grandiose narcissist, really charming, seemed really nice, and he wooed me, actually, an Italian guy that I worked with. And yeah, it was, like I said, for the first 4, 5, 6 weeks I was working with this guy on a site, and he was my supervisor. I genuinely thought that he was, you know, like I said, charming. You'd see him interacting with people, but then as soon as the people turned, he would change. It was bizarre. But I saw him as well, man, one day. The thing that really did it for me with this guy was there was 2 incidents in the same day. We were walking past a mother and a baby, and the baby was in the pram crying. And he was all smiles, being really, like, charming to the mother and the child passing by. And then as soon as they went, as I said, the child was crying, and he turned to me, he's like, "Fucking baby, shut the fuck up," or something like. I was like, what the fuck is, what is that like? And then I was in the car with him as well, man, and he actually went out of his way to hit a bird, like to actually try to kill a bird. And I was like, this fella is... But I saw it, he was throwing tantrums as well in the workplace, and just, he would say one thing to you and then the next, and it was actually really entertaining, because me and the boys that were working for this guy, we just saw this circus happening, and he was causing chaos. And it was great for us, because it meant that we'd not a lot to do, because he was so chaotic. But yeah, that guy was a full on. The thing is, man, is that when I knew that he was, how I was able to see it was, you talk about those energy vampires. That day, those 2 incidents, because I was in such close proximity from the day, I was he was feeding off it, man. I could see him feeding off, plugging into me and taking that life force, because, like, obviously who I am as a person, being around that and seeing it, I was just like, but yeah, man, it was shocking. But yeah, that's just a little...
Yeah, no, and no, for me, because I've seen people in my world within the last year, I won't mention any names, but, I've seen people gaslight someone who I care for, and I've seen it almost like a pattern through people. Because, people can... You talk about that programming. You program this person, and you can almost kind of gaslight through that person to that person. And I'm like, this is a special type of gaslighting. You've really stepped it up. You know what I mean? So I'm watching something, and I'm like, this is fucked. I'm watching somebody program somebody else to affect this person, and almost kind of show this person the tricks. And it's like that. A father passes down the traits, traumas and stuff, but also the trait to this person. They pass it on to this person. Then the son gets this trait and then thinks it's okay, and then behaves either with women or friends or whatever in this certain way. And again, I'm looking at these people thinking, they're clearly not going to be bad people. They just don't understand what they're doing. And it's even in this long-form conversation we're having here, where we've opened up narcissism, and we've opened up, what gaslighting is. It just needs to be simple, and it needs to be in people's faces. When you do this, this, and this, it's this. Not this fucking, it's just getting thrown about willy-nilly. So I'll just go back to that because I want to just labour that point around what it is. In a nutshell, it's emotional manipulation where you're going to try and you're going to try and make someone doubt their very reality. Their very reality, So just simplify. I'm going to emotionally manipulate you to doubt everything about yourself, which is going to keep you fucking. Your very foundation of who you are starts to dissipate. Right? That's gaslighting. So if we just park it in, obviously you can go on in other spiderwebs away in much more detail. But in a nutshell, that's what it is. Now, as men, obviously there can be men and women. But we've got to hold ourselves accountable to that. And if we because I don't know about you, but I know, I said it before, I would have done that in the past when I was a young and an idiot, not knowing then the effects of what it might have done to the other people. So I think we've got to call it out. And as brotherhood, as friends, fucking call it out on your mates if you see it. It's not cool if your mate does that to his missus. It's not fucking cool. It's weak as shit. Yeah. It's the epitome of weakness. We talk around strength in men and brotherhood. Well, as a fucking strong man, if your mate or your brother is behaving like that, that's the very form of weakness. And you, as a strong man, should be fucking giving them a clip and pulling them in line. And that's how we do it, because we understand what this does, because the ripple effect of that, you're causing real traumatic experiences for people. And again, but that also, it's not just about men and women. It could be the other way around. If you've got a friend, and I know I talked to our good mate Stephen, and he's got a friend, and his friend is getting it the opposite way. His missus pummels him with this way, gaslights the shit out of him. And he's sitting there in this toxic environment, and he's not in a good space. And Stephen is trying to help him out and say, hey, you're in here. He's trying to help, but he's still in that space. So it happens either way. But either way, we should, if you've got friends you truly cared about, if you understand what this is, fucking help, hold them accountable, or let them see what's going on. Does that make sense?
100%. And about narcissism, right? I read a book before, speaking of books, called The Narcissist Scale, I think it was called. And certain traits, like you were talking about, having certain levels there's levels to it. I think I rated like a 6 out of 10 or something, right? So we've all got traits, which, like confidence, for example, that kind of type A personality of getting after things. There's levels of narcissism to that which you need to have to be like successful or actually achieve stuff. But when we're talking about the extreme end, is that right? And then you've got if you've got someone who did like that Italian guy, sounds like it was a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
So there's certain traits as well. But if someone says you're a narcissist, and we're going to label that, then that is going to be all the traits that you talked about. Is that correct, or have I made that up?
You just beat me to the punch, because that's just what I was going to say. It is a spectrum. As I understand it, it's a spectrum, and we all have certain tendencies, which is what you're saying are traits. So, yeah, we can behave in a way that is narcissistic, but we may not actually be narcissists ourselves, So, like you said, we've all been guilty of fucking saying the wrong thing.
Everybody does.
Yeah, so
100%.
But yeah, to echo what you're saying, it is, I would say it's a spectrum or a scale, like you said, and there is tendencies. But the people who are actually the 10 out of 10 who have disorders, I'm not sure that they would be able to actually hear anything we're saying here. That's what I was trying to address a few minutes ago. Because if there was somebody listening to this who was with said person,
their ego be like.
I
think that's what it comes down to. There was ego as well, isn't it?
But it actually wouldn't be helpful for that person to be like, oh, I just need to tell him that you're a narcissist, and then he'll change.
No. People like that, like you said, they're master manipulators, right? And I think a lot of it just comes down to ego, like you said.
Yeah. But I'd say that's like a clinical thing that it can't be identified because it's an inherent problem within the DNA. Is that kind of it?
No, and I just want to say one other thing. The gaslighting is the control element. I don't know if we've already touched on that, but obviously the false reality that this person, the doubt, like you said, manipulation, they have to do that to keep the control. So that's I've actually, unfortunately, I know lots of I have lots of female friends who have been in it, and it's the same thing, same pattern. You see it like it's textbook. They just I've had friends who've said they actually believe they were losing their mind, like, because that's like at the worst end of it. That's what they do, and they cut you off from family, friends, everything else. They completely warp, like you said, your reality. So, for those on the higher end of the spectrum, they're really toxic people. But yes, there are, like we're saying, tendencies, and it is a spectrum, and we all have. I like where you're coming from with it, Ian. You're trying to say that we all have a responsibility, that we can't just throw those words out without understanding them, and therefore we're having this conversation to dissect it and get a better understanding, right?
Yeah, 100%. You know, you hit the nail on the head, because I think society's changing, right? It's changed. You know, the thing that people are getting educated for in school now, by the time they get in, it's not there. What they're educating for, what they're being taught, the world doesn't exist. All right? So they're coming through, you know, we touch on social media, they're getting bombarded with murders, porn, you know, all the, you know, the what do you call it, the you know, toxic masculinity. I don't like
even
that fucking
even mental
word.
health disorders, though, right? As well, because you can watch stuff online, and it's like you've got like you said, personality disorder, or you've got the anxiety disorder, and it might be true in some. But if you're looking at that all the time, then you diagnose yourself because you believe those words. Right?
They're getting battered from all that. They're literally just going. And as the human isn't built for this. We're not built for this. So the kids now. That's why fucking suicide is the leading cause of death from 15 to 45. It's gone down to 15, and there's a clear correlation when the iPhone kicked into anxieties, depressions, everything started skyrocketing as soon as this came in, and social media. So humans aren't built for this. You know, we're not built for it, and we're not doing anything about it, because what we're trying to do is, you know, and we talk around, it's like the fucking head of the snake when you talk around, say you talk about the Andrew Tate and stuff, and he's tapped into a market of men who are fucking suffering, right? He'll have 50% of in there which is great, and then he'll have 50% in there which is fucking way off, right? And it's fucking causing all of this fucking shit and this and that, and people are talking about it. And then the media fucking are going at these things and trying to have a fucking fight. Well, okay, so you want to have a fight with that, and then you win. But there's 100 others lined up to fucking say the same thing. It doesn't fucking matter. You're just causing fight, fear, separation.
Division, yeah.
What we should be doing is educating our fucking core of humanity, which is our fucking young, up-and-coming people in society, about emotional regulations. What the fuck good and bad is. I'm 47. How old are you?
I'm 37.
37, you look older. How old are you? How old are you?
34.
Oh, 34. You pass at 34. And we're talking about these words now. I didn't understand this word. Our kids haven't got a clue. So everyone's banging out, you're this, you're that, and it's coming at them hard. It's creating more division, more anxiety, more everything. So rather than fucking... The media loves to sell, right? So they fucking, let's do this, let's do that, let's do that. How about we focus on fucking healthy masculinity? How about we focus on some great messaging out there? Shine the fucking light on some good shit. The conversations we're having today, we're saying not all men are bad. Women and men are fucking assholes at time. These are emotional manipulation traits. I've been an asshole. You've been an asshole. You've been an asshole. We're growing.
I've been an asshole.
I watched you yesterday. You out of order to me. No, I think that's what I'm trying to say. Why don't we shine the light on fucking good conversations? And, you know, because what real men, we talk about fucking real men fucking will hold, you know, these weak masculine traits accountable. You know what I mean? If I saw somebody doing some of this stuff to someone, I'm going to fucking pull you up. I would say, I pulled you up in the past about certain things, and you've pulled me up about certain things. We'll show each other the mirror. You've done it to me recently, I've done it to you, whether it be with a friend or with women. We'll hold each other accountable. Say, I had a conversation with a good friend of ours, you know, only in the last couple of weeks. And as a real deep friend of mine, you know, who I love very much, I've seen a few things and I called a few things out. And it might not be about anything with this, but still, the thing I'm trying to say is we all have a responsibility. And those people in your circle, you have a responsibility to hold accountable. Now, if you do that, even if they fucking rebuff, they're not on your frequency, they're not meant for you, but still that acorn's going to sit and it might grow and it might be that thing that makes somebody fucking change and that positive impact. So I think as fucking strong men, leaders, we should be coming through with this kind of men and women in symbiosis and healthy masculinity, healthy femininity, and together we come through and stop shining light on fucking problems or a dickhead here or a problem there. Shine a light on the fucking good stuff and highlight to our young up-and-coming people what fucking good looks like. You know what I mean? That's how I think it's the way. I don't know what you think.
I think, man, what you just said there, like particularly around holding each other accountable and calling people out, like that's what separates the boys from the men, you know? Like, and you're saying ego, but like if you're talking to a guy and you're just speaking your truth and you're saying, look, man, that's, as you like to say, off-center or like, you know, and if they're not behaving as is expected of a healthy masculine man, and they take that the other way, then they're, you know, they still have their own stuff to work on, figure out. But yeah, we have to have those hard conversations, right? And we have to lead the way. We have to be positive role models. So that's how that was resonating for me with everything you said.
I also think as well as taking personal accountability as well and personal ownership for what you're taking in. I always talk about diet. That's my wheelhouse, right? Nutrition, what are you consuming, what are you eating, right? Because that's going to determine how you feel, look, perform, and everything else, and how you think. The same goes for social media, for example, right? If you've got a friend and they're on, you know, scrolling all the time, YouTube and everything else, again, going back to the algorithm, they're looking at certain things and then they're believing certain things as well. So they're going to act a certain way because, yeah, you can call them out. But we have to be very aware of our emotional environment, right? What are we, it's part of your diet. What are you consuming online? You're consuming that, it's becoming part, it then becomes, that can etch into your subconscious mind and that becomes what you believe. And then you look at the world a different way. 100%. And we're not always aware of it because your subconscious mind, right? 90% of the things that we do and how we behave is all stored right in there. So we have to really unapologetically unfollow things, for example, which we know are not serving us. And as adults, we can say this, right? For kids, that's another conversation. Maybe we can get to that. But as adults, we've got that awareness. Well, for the most part, we're old enough to make those decisions and really be aware of what you're consuming. Not just with what you eat, but what you're consuming online, right? Because that's where most of us, even as adults, right, we're spending most of our times, if we're honest, most of our daily waking hours online, right? Whether we're consuming, well, obviously I know I don't really consume a great deal unless it's podcasts, but that's where I feel like we said this off air, right? I feel like if we can tune into proper conversations like this, it gives us this is everything that happened in America, right? Trump, that was all due to long form, real conversations. People are sick and tired, most people, of the fluff, right? And all these short clips. They want to see the real version of what's going on. So if people tune into proper conversations like this, they actually get a proper conversation and not just clips, which are then basically programmed in an algorithm for you to consume more of. And that's going to become how you think. Simple as that.
I think using the diet analogy, it's standard. It's anything. What you put in your body, you put in your mind becomes you, right? So
Definitely.
I think that's a really, really valid point. And you know, as adults, but it's even hard for us. You know, I get sucked into shit. You know, I might look at my thing. I might look at one of my businesses. What's going on social media there, or what's going on social media. Next minute, I'm like, fucking on. Oh, that's got me. You're fucking on this fucking rabbit hole. You know, and I'm there for 20 minutes when I should be meditating first thing in the morning. I'm like, fuck, I missed my meditation. Then I've got to go to the gym, and I've missed that really valuable moment in the morning for me. And I'm an adult, so that's the point I'm trying to make, is because I really believe that the kids and the up and coming adults are the key to save what could happen, because they're fucked. You know, you know what because I'm watching it from, you know, Katya's beautiful daughter Victoria. She moved in. You know, great girl, getting better by the day, but I still see she's got this kind of this phone addiction, which is crazy. It's like, I joke about 8 seconds. I'll be talking to her and it just comes up like this. And I'm like,
I heard someone recently. Imagine there was a drug you took, right, that made you stare at your hand for 9 hours. you wouldn't want to take it, would you?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
It's crazy, but it blows my mind. I'm looking, going, there's a real kind of disconnect. Like when I was a kid. If my mum's friends would come in, you know, from work and come in, I would engage with them. I might be 10 to 14. I can hold a chat. Hey, how are you? And it was just I must do, you know, how I was brought up. It's, you know, it's manners to have a conversation with that adult. Hey, how are you? And, you know, I could have a conversation. I could hold a conversation for 5 minutes with an adult. They can't, a lot of them can't do it now, or they don't want to, because they've got this attention. They're thinking, oh, that phone, that bit of dopamine, you're boring me. I want to look at this. I want to get hit with all this dopamine.
And social anxiety, man, this is another, it just come to mind now. And all these terms, you know, social anxiety is another one, right? Where I've got social anxiety. Like, this is another, like a new, and look, we get it, right? From what you're saying, being around people and having conversations like this, it's hard, right? It's challenging. Sometimes it's very easy to stay in on the weekend and scroll, right? To go out and have real life interactions can be challenging, right? Especially for the young kids who are not having as much of it. For us, it became our normal, right? When we didn't have that distraction. So that kind of thing as well with social anxiety. Yes, anxiety is real. We all get it. And we all sometimes struggle with these interactions and making an effort with those things because it takes work, right? Building relationships takes a lot of work. But that's just another one that came to mind then as well, like the social anxiety. When you're looking, you're looking online and you see, oh, social anxiety, that's a real thing. Oh, wow. And then you scroll and you see more of it then because the algorithm's got you. And then before you know it, you're diagnosing yourself with these things, which it's not necessarily reality. Don't get me wrong. There's mental health disorders. There's clinical depression. There's a big conversation, but it goes back to that environment, right? What are you consuming each day? You have to be so critical with that.
But it's paradoxically what you're describing. If they're doing this, they're not interactive social, so they're going to get social anxiety because they're not. So they're not interactive. So when they do, they're like, "What's this?"
Yeah, and you said it right before. You bring that phone up, anxiety. Yeah. If you're on that phone with it, you put it down, less anxiety generally.
I'll give you a prime example. I'm a 6'4" lump, right? And Scouse lump, people think, oh, this, that, and the other. But during all that COVID crap, I got my own gym in my house. Remember the gym I used to put in, when I had Mascot. Then I moved to Narrabeen, and I just had the gym downstairs, I had the room, and I would train. And then when I moved back to Cudgee, I thought, I'll go to the gym. The first time I went to the gym, I fucking felt like I had social anxiety. I was like, too much. What the fuck's going on? I used to train it by myself, not giving a shit. It was too much happening. It's rammed, it's busy, there's this, that going off. I was like, woof, because I wasn't used to it. I was kind of completely disassociated from that type of environment. And I remember it affected me, and I almost had a little bit of a panic. And I, play it cool, but I was inside, I was like, what the fuck's this feeling, So it does creep up on you because that's what's happening to kids. And then kids aren't aware of what's happening. No one's fucking telling them. No one's educating them. It's the old school system for a world that doesn't exist, which is battering them with a million one things we never have to deal with. And that's what I'm saying. We have to flip the switch. So rather than saying this one individual is saying wrong things at this percent of the time, and that's the problem, how about we just spend some time with our fucking kids? And why we change the education system, we change how we parent, we change how we think, and we really get into that dynamic because...
the community, like you say, education, government, how we parent, and also community, right? It's like having that community, as you always talk about, as one of the pillars, right, of your foundation with good men. We have to really put time and effort into these things, right? And okay, what's their environment like? What's the people they're spending time with? Because that social, I always talk about with obesity, right? For example, if you've got a friend who's obese, you got a 50% higher chance of being obese, right? It's all everything we're talking about is influence, right? Everything is either online influence, social media, for example, or it's influence with people you spend time with. You're in a toxic relationship, you're spending most of your time with that person. That's going to influence the way you think and feel. So these are all things that need to be looked at, right?
100%. Okay, so a lot of kind of big ticket things that we've discussed there. I talk about fucking what are real men, and I think what do we think are real men? You know what I mean? Because people talk around that. So
I'm a real man.
Exactly. Because people talk about it, right?
Yeah. We need more real men in the world. What is that?
Real men and some of my stuff, what I would kind of bring to mind is, and I think you touched on it the other day. You did a good post on something about it and I really liked it and it resonated with me. It was kind of just real men aren't going to put other people down in a nutshell.
Other men, yeah. They don't question. A healthy masculine men don't question other men's masculinity.
Yeah, and I think for me it's like men, women, whatever your fucking gender, whatever you're into, doesn't matter. We're all bespoke, and we all have elements of femininity and masculinity in us, right? And it might be about certain topics, might have more feminine, masculine, whatever our makeup is. That's who we are. And if something fulfills us, that means we're online with our centre. Good on you, good on you. And there might be a large proportion of the population naturally are much more masculine. Men, of course, we're going to be more masculine than feminine. There might be 70% of the people that might really fit this type of bucket, but then there's the 30% which might be nuanced in there. And that's them. Perfect. Have you found your way? Great. Why would we throw stones over there? Why would we take the piss out of that? As a good human being, don't we want everyone to be happy and fulfilled where they are and meet them where they are? And the same with women as well. It's the exact same with women. You know what I mean? Like, there'll be some, you know, more masculine women that suit a more feminine balanced man, and that works. Boomf. Now, but if you get two, you know, get a really masculine man and a really masculine woman, that doesn't work. I've been there. You know what I mean? My Katya is much more of a more, like, I call it like divine feminine being. It really gels with me. You know, she can't be sometimes, you know what I mean? Because she gets triggered and say, oh, this comes through. But if I kind of really come through with my divine masculine, it really brings it into divine feminine, and the bond works, you know? So for me, one of the biggest things, that resonated with me when you said that it's not about putting others down who aren't the same, you know?
Definitely, man. And it's what you've talked about before, right? I think it's very simple. Again, simplifying things is just understand who you are. And like you said, there's all these clouds over your moral compass, what you said earlier. I like the moral compass. So you've got to peel off those layers. But just being true to who you are when it comes to, in my opinion anyway, you know, true masculinity is one, just being real and being honest with everything. Because that's hard. And that takes courage, right, as a man, as a man to do that. And also, it's you know, being able to manage your emotions, right? If we look at like stoicism and those kind of things, now that can be taken too far, where you can shut your emotions off. That's not healthy, right? But being able to manage your emotions, like you say the other day, right? When you were moving, it's stressful, you get reactive, but you caught yourself and you had the 5 minutes of breathing. It's not to say you're perfect, none of us are perfect, but you had that 5 minutes. You were aware enough you were reacting, and you pulled yourself back in. When we react as a man, all that's doing is that's dropping down our masculinity, if you want to put it that way. We're going to do it. We're going to get triggered. But having that awareness to step back and go, okay, this is ego. This is my emotions. What can I learn from that? Let's move forward so I can be a better man. You know what I mean? That's kind of the way I look at it anyway.
Oh, that's a really good point. I like that.
I'd like to compliment some of that. Like, it's also, though, when you do react and when you do fall down, that's when it's also about, like you said, the balance between masculine and feminine. When we do fall down, that we don't actually overdo beating ourselves up, because we're perfectly imperfect human beings. So being able to practice the more feminine things like compassion. And what you were saying as well about speaking your truth, that's also vulnerability, which is more on the feminine side.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
yeah.
It's balanced, right? It's being able to, but that's... You said stoicism, like that's actually one of the biggest misperceptions around stoicism, that it means you're silent, man, and it's not that at all.
You're silent?
Yeah, you don't talk about your emotions.
Yeah.
It's a common...
I didn't mean, that's the thing with stoicism as well. Is that part of stoicism?
You pointed it out. Yeah. I'm just saying that's a misperception, that lots of people think that stoicism is that, but it's not. It's actually looking in and
awareness,
learning yourself, knowing yourself. You know, that's what Aristotle said. To know thyself is the beginning of all wisdom. So why am I wearing the glasses?
You need to be wearing them, man. You're nailing it.
I don't believe you without the glasses.
No, but what you said then is bang on though as well. I think stoicism, the whole kind of philosophy, correct me if I'm wrong, Greek philosopher over there, right? The whole philosophy of it is essentially, okay, this is what I can change, which is in my control. Okay, I'm going to have this pain, I'm going to have hardships in life, but once I've taken that hit, how can I kind of move forward from here and then change what I'm in control of, and then let go of what I'm not in control of, right? But that's really hard, and everything, whether it's masculinity or just being a better human, male or female, I think it's just how fast can you bounce back. And I think self-compassion, that could be a feminine, whatever this is, but I feel like that's where I've got better as a human, let alone, you know, man, is being able to not beat myself up. Like if I can snap out of that. I had it this morning. I had a little disagreement with Janini. Not a disagreement. I said something and I was like, why did I say that? And then it was her, you know, like when they're PMS, like you've got less wheel room. You know what I'm saying? There's less room for error. And I said it. I was like, yeah, that didn't land as I wanted to. And then I was beating myself. I'm like, why have you done that for now? Now how's she going to feel? Blah, blah, blah. Went to the gym, training. And straight away I was like, okay, that's all right. I'm going to be better now. And I'm going to learn from it. And it's going to be fine. It's always fine. But how quick can you get yourself out of that? I think that's an art, man. I feel like it all comes down to self-awareness, doesn't it? When the more aware you can get, the more you can get out of that. Like learn from the emotions, feel the emotions as well, though, because it's very bad if you're running away from emotions. But feel it, even sit in it, like you did the other day, took some deep breaths, and then how fast can you kind of bounce back and be better, you know? That's what I feel like it is. But
yeah.
But it's a lot easier said than done, man. Life's hard, man, I gotta say.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I always like to simplify shit, and it's like, at the end of the day, you know, a real human being, you know, real man, real woman, it's just being a fucking real human being. What is being a good human being is if your actions are negatively impacting someone else and you're affecting them knowingly, that's not good. If there's if there's no other way and it does that, there'll be some nuanced things where somebody might get affected and it's their journey and your journey. But if you're purposely affecting someone, because there's a lot of narratives out there, oh, it's, men, and we do this and we don't give a fuck about what's going over there because of X, Y, Z. No. That's weakness. If you're kind of going to affect somebody over there purposely, that's fucking weak, okay? And then what we should be trying to do is grow, help others grow at the same time, and with our growth, ideally, it doesn't put other people down. We don't affect anybody else around us, men or women, right? It doesn't fucking matter, okay? And I think that's the key thing, that it's not about clambering over people and fuck them and fuck this, which you see out there, right? And I think I just want that to be, a bit of a message that for me, just being a fucking good human being, don't affect other people. Go on your growth journey. Help as many people as you can, and we'll fucking all win together.
I love that. And I don't know if you, something stood out to me then, is like, what I find I've started doing now myself is whenever I think too much about myself, right, whenever I start thinking too much about my own problems, or I'm trying to, earn a certain amount of money or whatever it is, right, and I get too far into that, I start feeling worse. Right? I start feeling a lot worse. And then I realize, actually, what about your mate? You haven't reached out to him for a while. Okay, what about that person? What about, how's your sister doing? How's it? Like, why don't you just, try and help people?
You haven't heard from your fucking ages.
Exactly, mate. I went off the radar. But, literally, like you say, even just reaching out to a friend and, actually just helping people. You know what I mean? And just being there for people. Sometimes we get so sucked into our own world, and then before you know it, again, we keep coming back to it, right? But then you're looking at your phone, you're in your own world, and you're not really thinking about, where are the people around me? You know what I mean? Can I just be there and have a chat with my mate? You know what I'm saying? Can I just be there and ask them how they're doing, check in with them?
And I tell you what, we run some good men's circles now. We've been supporting the man-to-man men's circles, and I've met some of the most realist men there that, not personified as big fucking this, that, just real men who've got the courage to stand there and pour their heart out and say, I've done this, I've done that, I feel like shit, or I've done this and I'm trying to do this, but it's real. It's fucking real. Now, for me, that's being a real man. That's prepared to show your vulnerable side. No mask. This is me. And I'm trying to help. And there's no judgment in those circles. Everybody's ready to help each other. Everybody's ready to cheer each other on. And I think that's what's been a real man. And that just needs to then that just pops into, and again, I've got the vision of good men helping good men, good women helping good women. We fucking help each other in symbiosis. That circle becomes a fucking human circle where we help each other. And I think that's what being a good person is, and that's what being a good man, good woman, good human is.
Can I just add to and echo everything that you've just kind of touched on? But I'd like to also say that, from a mental health perspective, that life as well does throw fucking lots of things at us, and it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to suffer. I think that's also there is light at the end of the tunnel. We've all had our dark nights of the soul. So resilience is also part of being a strong or healthy man, or whatever. You're a good human, or whatever you want to label it as. So just, if you are struggling and you're listening to this, that's okay. There's no shame in it. It's just part of life. And actually, through your suffering, if you can stay strong and come out the other side, you will be stronger. So yeah, that was just something I wanted to add.
Well said. And what I would advise is, because we've all been to the men's circles that I've all things around. It's beautiful, and I think get yourself to a men's circle if you're struggling. I mean, and again, through the Good Men and Help Good Men app, we'll soon be launching, and we'll help get those communities up and running. But just join one wherever you are. And as you said, you're not alone.
We've got to talk, because we're in the play in this now. The men's circle that you created, right? Bringing men together, stand there in a circle, have a chat, have a laugh, right? I even saw yourself on the first one, right? You talked about some stuff. Yeah. I don't recognise you now without the beard, though, man. I'm thinking, I'm honestly thinking, is this the same Jack, or am I talking about someone else? No, just for the audience, all right? Just, we're standing there, we're having conversations, we're talking about, wins we've had, struggles we've had. I know you opened up about some stuff, and I could just see it was like a lot of us, even myself, right? Reflected on some things, talked about some of the kind of burnout I'd had recently, and it just felt like a weight off my shoulders. And I can see the next one you came to, you were like a new man, right? Like you come into yourself, like you unloaded some stuff that you were struggling with. And we all
stepped into the full circle, gave it the big one.
Exactly.
Jack.
I know, mate. It was like a bloody talk, wasn't it? I think is Jack hosting this men's circle, is he? Or? No, but it was incredible. And we didn't have to go deep into Hayden, who I brought along as well. Literally saved the life, bro, because we had these conversations. We saved a life. He was actually, on the edge, and he was about to, commit suicide. And he didn't because there was luck there as well, but there was also the fact that he had this conversation.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
He listened to this conversation.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Amazing, man. So I've got to give you credit for that, man. And I know it's going to be at scale now, obviously with the app and everything else, but just for anyone else listening, even if it's having a coffee with, especially particularly men, I feel like men do generally struggle more to open up with these things. A friend, you don't need 10 friends, you need one. That's what you need. You need one person you trust. Sit down, have a coffee. You'll feel better afterwards. You'll never feel worse. You know, if you're struggling with something, it ain't weak to speak, right? It ain't weak to speak, right?
Oh, 100%.
In fact, it's the opposite. So,
can I say one other thing as well, just for the audience? Like, none of us, the three of us here who are talking, we're still figuring it out all the time.
Definitely.
You know, we don't have it figured out. It's all a big learning curve. You're going to make mistakes. Embrace the failure, embrace making mistakes, and you will have painful days, but it's, you know, keep showing up for yourself. That's, you know, and be true to yourself. Like,
that's a really good point. And what you said, you know, embrace the failure or something and keep moving forward, because I think I'll close on this point, because we talked about it this week, is when you're doing stuff, no matter what it is, even if you're trying to grow, or you know, sometimes you could go to speak up and someone can knock you back by, you know, they might not receive your vulnerability in the right way, or you can be trying to do something in business and people fucking throw shit at you, and I you know, it's throwing from the cheap seats, throwing stones from the cheap seats, you know what I mean? And you know, we've spoken about it recently. You could be trying to engage with somebody, it could be a business perspective or a friendship perspective, and you're going to do something, and someone will go like, oh no, yeah, okay, you do that, and then you do that. And something goes wrong on day 10, and they go, and they start throwing stones at you, saying, I told you not to do that. And you're like, hang on a minute, come in the arena with me. You're not even in the arena, you're throwing shit from the cheap seats. And I find in life, people throw from the cheap seats. They're not prepared to do the work that you do. They're not prepared to do the business thing that you do. They're not meant to put yourself out there on the socials like you do, or that you do. You're brave enough to do. They wouldn't do that. You know, they're not prepared to do that. So I think for men who... don't let those people who throw shit from the cheap seats affect you, because they do, you know, and it can stop people from, you know, going to that's why I say come to a space where you're not going to get those assholes, you know.
And it's a perspective of looking like now, and it's taken me a long time, man. Exactly what you said is very easy to say, but when you get all that hate, like you say, we're not built to have like hate at mass, for example, right? We're not built for that. We're built for like small tribes. And I had the same thing. I used to look at it, I used to take it personal. I would find myself engaging, you know what I mean, like putting so much emotional energy and essentially negative energy, and it would just turn me into a reactive. Like, I felt terrible just even engaging in that. So it's a perspective thing. Like, look at it. If anyone, man or woman, you're putting yourself out there, you might be doing stuff online, like you say, putting stuff out there. If you're getting hate, if you get one, like, you're doing a good job. If you're getting people doing that, it means, okay, I'm actually doing a good job. People are seeing me, because not everyone's gonna like what you're doing. And now it's going back to compassion real quick. It's now I have this compassion. I actually genuinely feel sorry. YouTube's crazy because I've been doing that's growing, right? And the comment, it's like 90% negative. Right? And luckily I'm thick-skinned, but I now look at these people, I'm like, wow. On a serious note though, like compassion, I feel sorry for people who've got time, take time out of their day. Like, and I'm probably not the only person they've got. It's probably their whole day is spent with. They've got to be in a bad place, man. I genuinely, not from a like, kind of like I'm better than you perspective. I genuinely feel sorry, man. I'm like, what is this person going through? You know. So I think it's a perspective shift as well.
Good on you. They say, you know, you've met it when you've haters, basically. So
exactly.
You've arrived, Marty.
You're winning if you get a few haters. Only on YouTube, you know. I haven't made it anywhere else, yeah.
Marty's top of the show. No, but I just think that's a really good, important one to finish on, because that in itself, we talk about a lot of these toxic traits that we're talking about. They can affect a human being. And again, it's not about men, it's men or women, it's a trait. If you do any of these emotional manipulations, if you're kind of saying to someone, oh yeah, go and do that, and then you're waiting for them to fail, then you're going to go, told you, you knobhead, and you're going to give people shit, it's really, you're like, what the fuck? It's so unfair. For a human being, unfairness is so toxic, and if it chips away at you, and I always say it's like the neural pathway of pain. You know, when you're younger, you know, I used to say when in work, you know, when I was in work, I was so resilient, and, you know, there was dickheads everywhere, and this, that, and the other. I would deal with things, and I would be working 7 days, picking up the phone at 2 a.m. You know, I used to be in logistics, and I'd be take the call of the phone of a night. night, and I was an 18-year-old lad, and people, there'd be a night driver on the road, and his load would fuck up. So, and he'd call me, and I'd be like, at 2 a.m, yes, and I'd be like, wake up, deal with shit, and then go back to bed. I was so resilient. But then later in life, as these things, these toxic things, this unfairness, you realise that boss is a dickhead, he's treating you like shit, they're not listening to you, people are thrown from the cheap seats, someone's being narcissistic tendencies, someone's gaslighting the shit out of you. It can be in work, business, relationship. It takes its toll, it chips away at you. And if you're not, because what happens is, what we're describing is most human beings aren't aware of what's going on. We're just trying to deal with it. And it just affects us so much that over time it chips away. And something that used to be like I always say, like, it could be like a little stream. Over time, it opens like a fucking river. And like, you know, I remember being trying to change me internet provider, and I'm fucking like, bear in mind, I've dealt with fucking, I was a managing director of a logistics business, this, that, and the other. I'm trying to change my internet, and I'm getting to the point where like it was just so hectic. 3 days, I've got no internet, and I'm having a panic attack over there. They've got so many. I'm like, what the? you fucker! You know, saw me fucking
3 days
internet
deep.
out.
Yeah.
And I was losing my shit. I wouldn't have done that when I was younger. It was because there's no pathway of pain. It was just everything builds up, and it just floods in at you. And that's because people don't understand about all of this stuff that we're talking about. And what I'm saying, instead of all of these words flying around left, right, and centre, let's understand them. Let's educate them. Let's talk about them properly. And let's put a highlight on healthy masculinity, healthy femininity, healthy humanity, and start from the core and start educating fucking people properly instead of causing the fight and division. You know what I mean? Make sense?
Love it, man. Mic drop on that, mate.
I could fucking talk all day on this. All right, chaps. Anything else you'd like to finish on before we wrap up?
Thanks for having us, I guess, or thanks for having me, anyway.
Thanks for having me too, man. I think that was a really, really enjoyable conversation. And like you say, I love the fact that it's just very simple, right? I think we've talked about this before, right? Like with the framework of good men helping good men, how you've designed that, very simple. You've got needs that need to be met as a human. Which ones are not getting met?
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
The genius is in the simplicity, and that's what is kind of gone amiss for humanity, I believe, right now. So thanks very much for your time, boys. Good chat, good laugh, and we'll catch up soon.
Cheers, my man.
Cheers, boys.
Bro. Thank you.
Cheers, bro.
Cheers, mate.